A girl with the weight of the world thrust upon her shoulders, guided by an otherworldly being that can see the future, trusted with the fate of an entire nation, holding out faith that her guided actions as the magistrate of Jinzhou will bring about a brighter tomorrow. A leader, resigned to being a pawn, a playing piece of a larger game with the world's fate hanging in the balance. This is Jinishi, one of the faction leaders of Wuthering Waves and a standout character with immense story potential. In fact, I'm convinced she's the best written character we currently have in the entire game other than Scar. But if you used to ask me which of these characters I would prefer, my answer would be Jinishi, as at her core, there is a more compelling narrative thread Kuro is currently spinning. A stance now reinforced by the cinematic that dropped today just as I was editing the script, an exceptionally strong piece of visual narrative that has cemented my faith in Wuwa's storytelling. More and more it begins to feel the low lows of Act 1 through 2 are very much behind us, that the quality of Act 6 onwards is destined to be upheld, with the bar set to be raised yet higher. I'm the Literate Degenerate, and this is a speculatory look at where I believe the story of Wuthering Waves is going, specifically at how our Lady Magistrate herself is going to tie into 1.1, and why she is quickly shaping up to be my favourite character in the game currently. Of all the characters so far introduced in 1.0, Jinishi certainly stands out, both in her design and her role within the plot. This aloof leader string pulling in the background, giving the player a plethora of tokens for them to investigate, guiding them through the world with an unseen hand, leading them to face off with Scar and eventually even herding him into a trap that actually works. Thus she's already proven herself to be immensely competent, capturing one of the biggest players of the opposing faction whose forte excels at quick escapes. It goes to show what light Kuro is trying to paint Jinishi in. In fact, our first face-to-face meeting with her has the light almost painting her in a ghostly aura. It's like she is some otherworldly celestial being and we are just mortals within her shadow. She gives off an air of aloof proficiency, of icy elegance, like she's always one step ahead, like everyone is just a piece on the board for her to move about at will. The way NPCs talk about her, reference her, it so often feels like they are not even talking about a human at one point, as if Jinishi has become some higher being, the same as the Guardian Centaur Jiwei itself at this point. That seems to be the light people view her in, the spotlight shined upon her, the faultless Lady Magistrate who communes with a dragon. But of course, if that's all there was to this character, I wouldn't be making this video. What makes Jinishi truly interesting, truly stand out, is that she is everything but the faultless chosen one of a dragon she's presented as. Her entire image could be very well just that, an image, a persona. A face she wears because it's expected of her, because she was called to be the magistrate by Jiwei at a young age and can no longer be anything but that leader figure. She never got the chance to be herself. Her original name isn't even Jinishi. Her entire character as we know it in 1.1 is just a front. In a sense, an entire life she could have lived was sacrificed the moment she was chosen. The moment she was picked up by a dragon and became a symbol, a figurehead. When we dig into what her role as the magistrate even is, it starts to become clear. She's essentially the voice of Jiwei, administrating policy according to prophecy, acting according to predictions of the future that always seem to be right, always seem to come to pass. It comes at no surprise then that her rule has been successful, Jiwei the future-seeing dragon having guided that rule every step of the way. In a sense, she isn't a leader at all. Even the token she presents to Rover turn out to not even be her own idea but the work of her advisor Chang Li. This duality is what makes her character interesting, the way she speaks about her role in the grand scheme, the way she calls herself a pawn. That is, essentially, exactly what Jinishi is, a part of a puzzle only Jiwei's future-reading sight can see, a leader only in title, a slave to destiny.
Jinishi will serve your will.
I find this interesting, how she refers to herself in the third person as if she's talking about someone else, like she's disassociating, as if she's still hanging on to the person she once was or at least could have been. Both her parents were massacred before she even learned to walk, and then she was carried off by Jiwei to be raised into the woman she now is, a woman whose life is played out like a script. She's answered every call of duty that's been asked of her, believing every step she's ever taken to be a carefully planned out route towards the idealistic future Jiwei predicts. So I'm left to ponder how 1.1 will explore this idea that Jinishi's entire life was planned out in advance without her say. She seems headstrong and steadfast, but I hope along the way we see her armor crack, the masks slip. Perhaps there comes a point where her resolve falters and she shows her vulnerabilities, her doubts. We get a deeper insight past Jinishi, the Lady Magistrate, and see a little more clearly on who she actually is. My biggest hope for her character is that she grows past being just a pawn in someone else's game, grows past being just a public voice of Jiwei, learning to have faith in herself over a dragon's prophecy of fate, a dragon that is now gone. Jiwei, as we know it in 1.0, is missing. Having left Jinshi's side during a crucial point when its guidance probably would be needed most, and yet, more disturbingly, its parting prophecy suggests that he and the Magistrate are destined to battle. A battle that will be the focus of 1.1, a battle that has the potential to succeed an emotional payoff that could become the game's best moment so far. But to make it compelling, we need to understand the relationship between the Guardian Sentinel and the Lady Magistrate herself, understand how to leverage that and use it and build up towards the climax that Kuro are laying down. I'm strongly convinced that Jiwei is seen by Jinishi as something of a parental figure, potentially the last family she has left. This means the fight between the two takes on a darker shade, and the reason I say Jinishi has such massive character potential becomes clear. Taking up a sword against one of the last scraps of family she has left in the world, which the script that is her life dictates she must fight, dictates she must kill. For what reason and to what end is hard to say. It's important to note that the ways of Jiwei are hardly understood by anyone, even Jinishi herself. Nobody even understands nor questions what parameters a magistrate is selected by, only that it is done by Jiwei itself. Perhaps the futures the dragon sees are all disastrous calamities, with the only way to protect the world from them lying in the act of eliminating the very one predicting them. I wholeheartedly hope Kuro have the balls to push the story in this direction. That being Jinishi killing Jiwei and fulfilling the prophecy, fulfilling what the story of Wuthering Waves so far has all been about, that of sacrifice and loss and grief. To me, that would be the perfect plotline to follow going into 1.1, Jinishi doing all in her power to find Jiwei, coming closer and closer to tackling the hard inevitable truth that is the fact these two must ultimately fight. That humans cannot be bound to a creature that can see the future, that they should be able to choose their own paths and write their own destinies. For the sake of true freedom, Jiwei has to die, and it wants that death to be at the hands of the closest thing it has to calling a friend, or even a daughter. Jinishi, who has been raised and mentored by a future-telling dragon since being a kid, now having to be her own woman, now having to kill that very mentor and parent for the sake of her people, for the sake of the future. If Kuro does something like this, executes it properly, builds Jinishi and her relationship with Jiwei, have the entire story quest of 1.1 be devoted to that build-up. The inevitable climax when we battle a dragon and the music doesn't swell in victorious highs. It comes down low, a piano melody grieving the tragedy that is unfolding as the final blow is struck, and Jiwei dies. So this has been my take on Jinishi, and where I sincerely hope her story is going. I also hope you got some enjoyment from my thoughts. There are not a lot of people covering the story portions of Wuthering, so I thought I'd just take up the mantle. Like, subscribe, and feel free to comment. Suggest what characters you'd like to see me cover next. Otherwise, it's just going to be, well, you already know.